Welcome to Upticks with Jake Falcon, founder and CEO of Falcon Wealth Advisors. In this podcast, we help high net worth individuals overcome financial complexities. We do this by enhancing financial literacy and discussing topics in a language free from industry jargon. Join us as we help explain exactly what having a solid financial plan means, as Jake draws from years of experience in helping hundreds of individuals get financially organized and focused on their goals. We hope you find Upticks educational, entertaining, and shareable. Now, on to the show.
Welcome back to the show. This is episode 259, Early Retirement. Corey, another week. We're fitting these suckers in. Neither of us have been on vacation. Yeah, I've played some golf, but I made sure I allocated time for Upticks. So it's been great, you and I getting into a rhythm here with the show. But like I ask you every week, what's new in your personal life that you want to share with the potential millions of viewers / listeners of Upticks?
Two things. One, I actually just received an email today, Jake, that I was named to the Forbes top next gen advisor list in the state of Kansas, which is really exciting. This is the second year I've been honored to have the privilege of being included. So I just got that email today, and that was exciting. And outside of that, just late last week, I went to St. Louis to visit some clients and actually caught a Cardinals game while I was there.
Well, congratulations on your Forbes next gen list. I've aged out of that young group, but you still have to beat me. I was number one before I aged out, Corey. So I know you're not number one.
I've got time.
You're not number one in Kansas yet, but congrats to that. And how was the vibe in Cardinal Stadium? I know they're having a bad season. Was it still packed? Was it it probably wasn't as bad as the Royals vibe, but how was it?
Not great, but it was, as far as it goes, because you're right. They just, from the very beginning of the season, they've just kind of come out flat and have had a lot of issues. I would tell you that the attendance was just shy, according to the Jumbotron in the guessing game, Jake, the attendance was just shy of around 40,000, which is pretty good for, a Friday night game where neither team is in contention. It was a bobblehead night. I don't know, maybe that brought people out, but I will say that Adam Wainwright was the starting pitcher for the Cardinals, and he's been on the team for almost 20 years. And it was really, I thought that was a treat to be able to see him pitch, because this is likely his last season. But it was almost a little sad and difficult to watch, because he's been doing this for so long that just his strength, his ability to throw the ball as hard and everything else is just not there. And they were just teeing off on him the first few innings. And it was just kind of sad watching a guy who's won World Series, Cy Young Awards, et cetera, just get teed off on like that. But, that's what happens when time passes.
Yeah, that is tough to see. But I can't believe they had 40,000 people there, because the Royals don't ever have that. So unless they're winning.
Must have been the bobblehead.
Yeah, the bobblehead wouldn't do that at Royals, though, at Kaufman.
True.
There's no way.
True.
What's
new with you?
With me, yeah, still lots of golf. I finally finished that book, The Bond King. Really good, about Bill Gross, pretty much the leader of PIMCO for many years. Pretty crazy story. I do encourage people to read it if you're interested in bonds, like I am. But I liked it a lot. Corey, you might enjoy it. I think you would. I've started a new book called Phenocracy. It's about fandom. So I think it's pretty interesting. What's cool about it so far, I just started it, is a father-daughter duo wrote it. So I'm really excited to get both of their perspectives. So it's a father-daughter co-authored book, which I think is kind of cool. So I've enjoyed it, actually. You got me thinking about it when you brought up the Cardinals, that I guess the daughter grew up in Boston, and she's arguing that is the best sports town in America. And I know St. Louis likes to argue that also, but Boston's tough to beat, man. They've got Red Sox, Celtics, the Bruins, the Patriots. I mean, that's pretty sweet. Be a Boston.
You ever been to Fenway?
No, I haven't. I'd like to go. Have you? You have, right?
Yes. And I love baseball, love the old parks. I always have loved Wrigley, but it was not until I went to Fenway for the first time last year that, it's awesome. I would say, as far as my perspective goes, that was by far the most fun and neatest and most unique stadium that I've been to. And I just appreciate how committed they are to preserving the history there.
So Fenway was better than Wrigley?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Definitely. I might have to check it out then.
Definitely.
Interesting. Okay. Well, speaking
But
of baseball parks, when you're retired, Corey, you can go to all of them.
there you go. That's right. That's
That's
right.
like that's like a big thing. I think a lot of retirees like to try to do. So,
Maybe
so
if
for
I
today's,
retire early.
that's right.
Sorry.
So retire early. So many of our clients have put themselves in a position to retire in their 50s or early 60s. And this week on Upticks, Corey, we want to discuss 5 important planning items that you must know to retire early. And frankly, this pertains to anybody, whether you're retiring early or not, but you must know these if you're going to retire early. So we'll kick it off here, Corey. I'll kick off with number 1 and let you go into number 2 and so forth, like normal. So number 1 is to understand and know your plan trajectory. So with each and every one of our clients that has a financial plan, and that's most of our clients, Corey, every time we sit in our office or pull it up via Zoom, or even if we're on the phone with the clients, we're pulling up that financial plan and we're looking out the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And we want to make sure that plan trajectory is moving ideally up and out, right? We want it to be higher as it goes out. Not all clients' plan trajectories look like that, and that's okay. But normally, all things being equal, if that plan trajectory is headed up and out, that typically means that your cash flow is sustainable in retirement and that your risk of running out of money is lower than somebody that their trajectory is running down. So the key, though, again, you want to retire in your 50s. I get it. We have a lot of clients that do that. Make sure you understand and know your plan trajectory. And then I'll add on to this. And then if you want to chime in, Corey, is review it regularly, right? You don't want to just look at this thing once and then not revisit it. So ideally with our clients, we like to review that at least once a year, for some clients twice a year. And again, we want to make sure that that plan trajectory is moving in the direction that our clients want it to move in. Do you have anything to add there, Corey?
Yeah, I think it's the only piece that I would add, Jake, and you kind of alluded to this, is that, there can be a trajectory of growth or utilization or even depletion if somebody's spending their accounts down. And that's obviously something that's good for us to be out ahead of and have a conversation with the client. But I think you made a good point that the trajectory is going to look different for different people. I think most important is that clients understand what that means to them and what that means in their financial plan. And so long as they're comfortable with it, typically we will work to get comfortable with it too. And really work with clients to get them where they want to go. But it's interesting because some clients have they really have the goal of preserving a meaningful legacy and leaving a lot of money behind to kids or grandkids. And I've joked that I've had other clients who have said, Corey, I want my last check to bounce, right? And most people are probably somewhere in between. But that's really what you're talking about with the trajectory.
Yep. Good. What's number 2?
Yeah, next is accessibility. So while you covered the importance, and not even just the importance, the fact that it's table stakes. You need to know what the trajectory for your financial plan is. The same thing holds true for accessibility. And when we're talking about accessibility, we're talking about what dollars do you have access to without any penalties. This is oftentimes one of the biggest challenges for somebody who's retiring early, or at least retiring before age 59 and a half, when their retirement accounts become eligible without penalty. One of the biggest challenges is how do you bridge the gap until that point, right? What dollars are going to be there and available to you for you to be able to take distributions and not have to pay penalties to Uncle Sam? So when we work with clients that are planning for an early retirement, we'll make sure that we incorporate that into their financial plan, that really the dollars are being saved accordingly so that cash flow will ultimately be there for them. But if somebody's going to retire before 59 and a half, there's a number of different strategies. I don't know, Jake, if we really want or need to get into each and every one of those here today.
Well, it's critical, just like you said, that they know. So again, we want to build up those brokerage accounts. We want to know the rule of 55, 59 and a half. And so the key is not all of our clients, unfortunately, get to choose early retirement.
True.
So sometimes there's a
True.
reduction in force or some sort of severance or layoff. And so, again, Corey, you can't always prepare for it, but accessibility is something that's very important. And yourself and myself, as trained chartered retirement planning counselors, we are versed in the types of accounts and when people can access them. And there's other things like a 72T. So again, we're not going to go over all those right now, exactly, Corey. But I think, again, understanding accessibility, if you want to retire early, then you can set yourself up and save in the appropriate buckets to be prepared to retire sooner. Sometimes that's not always the case, but there's other things that we can do. So again, that's very important in there. Good.
Yep.
The third one, Corey, is health insurance. That's always a hot topic with our clients. So you can't get Medicare until you're 65. So if you're retired 55, we've got to figure out a plan for 10 years before you can go on the government's, health program. And so it's okay. There's independent health insurance agents out there that can certainly help you. We want to budget for the cost of health insurance. Typically that's anywhere from $500 to $800 per person, but again, it can vary. And there's a variety of different types of plans. But again, you want to budget for it, you want to understand it, and you want to make all these decisions before you retire. Normally, our clients will get on COBRA for 18 months before they ultimately have to do something. But again, you want to talk to a health insurance agent before you retire. Again, if you get laid off and you weren't expecting it, that's another circumstance. But if you are planning to retire at 55, Corey, you definitely want to have that locked up. Thoughts on health insurance?
No, that's good. I really, that and the accessibility, Jake, that we just talked about, in my experience, those are the two areas that create at least the most challenges for somebody to retire early. Doesn't mean it can't be done by any means. But yes, making sure that there's money that you have access to and that you have the health insurance in place and that you're planning for that expense up until age 65. When you can move on to Medicare is really important. But I think that, I don't know about your opinion, Jake, or your experience, but as far as I'm concerned, it seems like more often than not, that's the big variable in why people choose to continue working, even if their financial plan may allow for an earlier retirement.
But I think it's an excuse people use to continue working, Corey, because I have a ton of clients that retire before 65. And remember, Medicare's not free either. True. This is again my suspicion, I would argue people use that health care is while they're still working, Corey, and this isn't a bad thing because they're scared to retire. I think a lot of people, their identity is in their job. There's a great unknown that if you're not going to work for 40, 50 hours a week, what are you going to do with that time? And it's scary for a lot of people, Corey. So I hear you. A lot of people use that, but I would argue it's an excuse, but it's not necessarily a reason, because I have a ton of clients that we just put health insurance into the plan and they're fine. Sure. Do they like paying $1,000 a month? No, they typically don't. But that doesn't really, my point is, once you're ready to retire and if you can afford it, I don't think health insurance necessarily is the reason. I think people use that as a scapegoat, frankly. And I think they just say, Corey, I can't retire because I want health insurance. Because you can show them. You can show them, hey, you can afford it. Why are you working that?
Yeah, you're probably right about that. I just think that thinking about clients that retired 10, 15 years ago, right? Just the health insurance landscape has changed meaningfully. And what they may have assumed their healthcare costs were going to be 10 years ago have changed. And obviously we have regular conversations with clients. So I think I agree with both sides of it, but more often than not, you're probably right. And that that is a kind of a fallback. Like, I'll just keep working because that way I'll have my coverage and my benefits. And that's the reason that I'm not going to retire. But oftentimes it might be because there is fear or concern about.
Yeah, and I want to be clear here, and I don't want to. We never want to talk anybody into retirement. That's not what I'm suggesting. But I would encourage people watching this show or listening to it to really, if you're still working and your only reason is health insurance, I think you should meet with us and we can run the math for you. Because in some circumstances, absolutely, you don't have enough money to retire, so you do need to keep working. But my argument is, in many circumstances, Corey, clients do have enough money to retire, even though they have to pay for health insurance. So then I would argue, what is the reason you're working? What is the real reason you're working? And it's okay. It's okay, but I want to get down to the core. Good. What's number 4?
Number 4 is the key age milestones. And this is really around the crucial ages that people will turn in their retirement years. I've told a lot of clients this lately, Jake. I feel like I've had this discussion more and more with people where we've really kind of joked that as people get older and they transition into retirement, things seem to get more complicated instead of more simple, which oftentimes is kind of what I think people would expect, because there's a number of different ages in terms of, 55 is an important one for someone to have access to their 401k without a penalty, assuming they separate from their employer and leave funds behind. 59 and a half, like you said, Jake, is when the retirement accounts become accessible without any penalties. 62 to 70, there are Social Security considerations. Age 65 is Medicare. You get out into your 70s, you're dealing with required minimum distributions from retirement accounts. The point there being, there's a lot of key milestone ages for people. And this is why it's crucial to have a financial plan and to have a fiduciary advisor that you're working with to make sure, one, you're checking those boxes as you need to, and two, there's thought and strategy behind the choices that are made, as opposed to what your neighbor, or coworker, or someone else may have done when they reached a certain age.
Good, Corey. Yeah, it's great that you rattled all of those off. You're right. They're checkpoints. And that's the sweet spot for our clients. Most of our clients are in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. And they hit these milestone ages, and we have conversations around it. Should you turn on Social Security? You got to turn on Medicare at 65. You have required minimum distributions in your 70s. So all of that stuff, like I said, is important and needs to be thought out. And it's not cookie cutter. You can't just do what your coworker or even your spouse or your neighbor did. It has to come down to the individual needs, the financial plan, the investments. All of that has to play a role and be taken into consideration when looking at those key age milestones. Very good. Now, number 5, the 5th one here is purpose. This is what I alluded to a little bit. A lot of people use the excuse of, I got to keep working for my health insurance. And I would argue, Corey, it's probably because they don't understand their purpose, which again is very normal. And I talk about it a lot on this show, is that you need to ultimately retire to something. Don't retire from something. A lot of people get that wrong. They're so stressed out at their job. They hate their boss. They've capped out on their salary, whatever. They don't like their job anymore. And they say, Corey, I got to get out of here. I'm miserable. That's okay. But you need to understand, what are you going to replace that time with? Because there's only so much golf you can play. There's only so much Price is Right you can watch. You don't want to sit around and eat all day, or whatever. So you've got to think, what is my new purpose? And I'm not suggesting that you have to have your next 30 years mapped out. What I'm suggesting is you need to bring awareness to it, that your life is going to change, hopefully for the better, but you have to put some work in here. It's not just going to come naturally. You have to understand, what is my new jam going to be? What am I going to do? And go with it. And maybe that changes in a couple of years, and that's fine, but you need to have some awareness. Any thoughts on purpose?
That's really good. And I think that we talk about this, Jake, and we understand this concept, and we talk with clients about it too. But really, a lot of it comes from experience, right? From working with people, from working with a number of different clients and seeing how, they've made the transition into retirement. But it does make a lot of sense that people give a lot more thought to not doing what they're doing professionally anymore, but they don't think about, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And exactly like you said, vacations, playing golf, time with the grandkids, etc. That's all great, but that's not going to fill up every hour, every day for the rest of someone's life.
Let me throw a curveball at you. Throw a curveball at you. So you always do this to me. So you're only, how old are you? 34?
34.
So you're 34. Let's say you were 54 or whatever, 64, and you were playing. What would you do if you weren't a wealth advisor? Have you thought about it?
I would work for my healthcare, Jake. I'm just kidding.
I bet you would.
No, yeah, I have thought a lot about that, and the truth is, I don't really have an answer to that one yet. I would spend, outside of spending more time with my family and loved ones, maybe a little bit more travel. It's not as in my life, I don't feel like there's a bunch of things that I want to do that I don't have the ability to do, or I can't make the time for. So I don't know, maybe we'll just have to check back in on this one in 10 or 20 years. But how about you?
It's a hard question to answer, right? And we talk about it every day with our clients, almost every day. And so, did you ask me about me?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know either. I think about it because I talk about it with my clients a lot. Probably something around either investing or financial literacy, because those are both two of my passions. So if I wasn't a wealth advisor, maybe I'd have my own hedge fund, or maybe I would just write books or blog or whatever, and not necessarily do it in a capacity where I needed to answer to anybody, but I literally just did it to do it. So again, I know that's not a great answer. I don't have any aspirations to go buy a sailboat or whatever, or I don't even like to travel, frankly. Rachel likes to travel a lot more than I do, but I would probably like to see some cool stuff. But again, I don't particularly like to travel. I like golf, but I don't like it that much to be playing it all the time. So I'd probably be doing something in finance, but less structured. Maybe I'd even open a nonprofit for financial literacy. I don't know about that yet, but I think just somehow educating people would probably be what I'd be doing, or investing for people, because again, I have a passion for both. Thank you, Corey. I
The
threw a
good news is, Jake,
curveball
you're
at
already
you.
doing both those things. That's what's funny. You're already doing both those things.
Well, I
You
know,
just
and that's
didn't
what's
keep
awesome. You're right.
Yep.
You're right. Now, again, there's a lot of other responsibilities. I'm a fiduciary to my clients. So again, I've got to answer to them. I've got to answer to our team. I'm CEO of a company now, which is crazy. So again, there's more responsibilities, which I love all of it. You're right. I think, but again, if I was 70 and retired, maybe I'm just, blogging and that's all I'm doing. Right. I don't have this responsibility at that age, to everybody, that I've kind of turned those reins over, and I'm just out there putting out content, for example. But I don't know. I still want to work a long time. I love what I do. So I'm pretty lucky on that. And I'm not doing it for the health insurance though.
Yeah, exactly. I feel the same way. I do think though, with something that is aligned with what we're talking about here though, as far as purpose goes, is, really just a consideration for people. I've had a lot of conversations. I don't know if you have, Jake. I'm sure you probably have, where I've talked with clients who make the transition into retirement. Maybe it's in their 50s or in their 60s, but they actually overcommit and overextend themselves to obligations in retirement, which probably ultimately kind of speaks back to the same thing you talked about earlier, which is just a little bit of fear of the unknown, or what I'm going to do if I'm not working anymore. But I've seen that happen with a number of people where they've just overcommitted or overextended themselves, and they've realized that after the fact, and they kind of want to recalibrate for what the rest of retirement looks like for them.
Yeah, you got to be careful with that. You're right. You can overdo it. So good. So quick recap, Corey. Plan trajectory, very important. What direction is it? And again, it doesn't necessarily matter, to your point. You just need to know the direction and be comfortable with it. And if we need to make changes, we can do that. Accessibility, where are you going to pull from? How much are you going to pull? What are the tax implications of that? Health insurance, you got to have that ironed out. Understand your key age milestones, 55, 59 and a half, 62, all those numbers. And then be aligned with your purpose, right? Again, think about, why am I here? What do I want to accomplish? What do I want to do maybe you just start it the next 6 months, right? And don't overdo it, like you said, but you want to bring some awareness to that purpose. So very good. Thank you all, as always, for tuning in. I forgot to mention, please continue to subscribe, like, share our content. We are doing this to enhance financial literacy, because ultimately we feel like financial plans are best for our clients. It's about our clients, not about us. So again, we want the financial plans to be best situated for our unique clients. So thank you again, Corey, for joining me. Thank you all for tuning in, and we hope you have a great week.
Thank you for listening to Upticks. Click the subscribe button to be notified when new episodes become available. Also, be sure to visit our website, falconwealthadvisors.com, and click the Contact Us button if you'd like to meet with Jake and his team.